Hello, hello. Welcome to my channel. It's Monday, January 6th, 2025. Hope you had a good holiday, happy holidays, good New Year's, and ready for 2025. I'm really excited today because we're going to talk about the challenges about the real estate market, specifically what's been happening to the American dream. Owning a home used to be the American dream. So the question is it still the American dream? Or is the American dream being broken or being challenged to many first-time home buyers and many sellers who want to move up or down? We're going to discuss that today. But I wanted to welcome you to my channel. I'm Mike Patel. My YouTube channel is Home Savvy Central. I was gone for a long vacation, so I had the last few sessions were recorded, but this is live today. And I have a special guest with me today. His name is Paul Sian. He was with me a few months back, and he's back again because he got some great tips. Let me introduce Paul, and then we can get this session started. Is the American ownership being broken? The American dream being broken or not? Let's discuss that. So let me bring Paul. Paul, can you see me?
I can see you, Mike. How are you doing?
Yes. Hi, everybody. This is Paul Sian. Paul, take a few minutes, explain who you are, introduce yourself. You've been here, so that's great. Welcome back.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me on again. I'm a real estate agent here in Cincinnati, Ohio, licensed both in states of Ohio and Kentucky. Kentucky here is just literally 10 minutes from where I live, so it's makes sense for me to get the Kentucky license as well. I help both buyers and sellers, both sides, Ohio on the Kentucky side, as well as I'm an attorney. I'm licensed in the state of Ohio as an attorney, do real estate and contract law, and some of that does easily blend well with assisting my clients on the real estate side too.
Right. Yes.
So I do work with both your traditional buyer, seller, the owner occupied, as well as investors.
Cool. Okay. Well, glad to have you here. As you know, we discussed earlier that our topic today is, of course, is the American dream being broken? I mean, the American dream is owning a home, and it still is. But a lot of the buyers and a lot of the sellers who are also buyers, whether they're moving up or down, their dream is broken also, because if the first-time home buyers or the buyers don't buy or cannot buy, cannot afford, or the home prices are out of reach, interest rates are out of reach, is it affecting the home buying dream of buying the American dream? So let's discuss that. And I really want to get into that. And the reason I brought up this topic is, number one, the home prices have been very high for the last 3-4 years, but in actuality, in the last 10 years, the cycle has been going up and up and up and up since 2010. It's 2025, 15 years of upward cycle. We've never seen that in the history of USA, at least in the last 100 years from what I'm reading. So this is whole new territory. Not only that, but the home prices have jumped significantly. We're not talking 3, 4, 5% increases per year. We've seen 10, 20% increases in 2021, 2022. Same thing with the interest rate. And what really affects this home ownership now as we go along 2025, 2026 is we're going to talk about these three things. Number one is property taxes, depending on what state you're in, because each state has different property taxes and they are increasing significantly. The other major factor that affects everybody nationwide, some states more than others, is the insurance, which in effect homeowners insurance. So we're going to talk about that. So we have a lot of topics to discuss about how we can hold on to the American dream. Is the American dream being out of reach? What can be done to have you own a home, have you able to afford a home? So let's talk about that. And to ask you bluntly, Paul, what comes to your mind if you're a first-time home buyer or if you're a home seller? So I want you to give me some feedback, or to the audience, not only as a buyer's perspective, but also as a seller's perspective.
Yeah, from the buyer side, as you mentioned, the prices have gone up. Especially the past couple of years, right after the COVID lockdown stopped. I mean, it was pretty hyper competitive markets. I mean, buyers were lining up, open houses. You probably have already 30, 40 people ready to see the house within the first minute of opening, multiple offers, even before getting listed in the market. If somebody heard that there's a house for sale, there's already buyers ready, throwing down offers high, higher than asking offer or higher than that, asking offers, as well as waiving a lot of contingencies, which I'm sure you don't recommend. I don't recommend is waiving inspection, waiving appraisal. So during that time it might have worked, but these days waiving those things like home inspection, it's can set you up for a major disaster. And we're seeing a little bit of that now in some of the stuff you read, like on Reddit, and some of the articles that people have those buyer's remorse, basically. But coming back to the the topic at hand, it's the high prices, high interest rates, and then as you mentioned too, the property taxes and insurance, because the home prices have gone up. The municipalities, they can increase their tax rates on a lot of times it's just automatic. The price goes up, right, the taxes go up. Same thing with insurance. Insurance looks at the replacement cost of your house. If your house now, your $500,000 house costs $700,000 to replace, let's say it's completely destroyed, you need to build a new one. Obviously, the insurance has to factor that in, so your rates go up at the same time too.
Exactly. Right. And to top it off, when it comes to insurance, if I'm an insurance company and somebody's house burns down or there's a major drainage issue because of flooding, when I go to replace, guess what the insurance is costing more? One, the replacement cost of the material is costing high, the labor is costing high, and the insurance liabilities that they have to buy, right? That's costing high. So all those costs, we have insurance costs, property taxes. Insurance is going to say, hey, it's costing me more to paint this house or replace the deck or whatever they're charging is to the consumer.
Yeah.
So it's who do you blame? Do you blame sellers, buyers, insurance? I mean, where do we place the blame and what's happening? So it's a tough situation we're in.
If I were to point a finger, I'd probably point a finger at the Federal Reserve for, artificially buying those mortgage-backed securities, depressing the mortgage rates. I mean, historically, where mortgage rates are kind of, today's rates are kind of more aligned with the historical rates. So with the low rates, that also caused buyers to kind of jump up there and say, hey, these numbers are great. Let me go buy a house, that 2%, 3%, whatever rate that they were able to lock in there. So at the same time too, makes them a little more resistant to selling. They might not sell. They got a low rate. They have to sell.
Right.
And then buy another house at almost double the interest rate.
Right. Yep. Okay. I'm going to read an article out here. When it comes to sellers selling a house in 2025, here's what you need to know. So this article is from Investopedia, and I'm going to briefly read that. Let me bring it on screen here quickly. Let me see if I can share it. Share screen. Okay. There you go. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, it says here, selling a house in 2025. Here's what you need to know. And some of the points is key takeaways. Homeowners have benefited from increased home values over the past few years, but prices are expected to grow slower in 2025 than in previous years. The second point is economists said as mortgage rates fall and homeowners experience life-changing events, more will list their homes. This will lessen competition and cause some sellers to lower their asking prices. Then it goes on to say that while sellers may not experience home values rising as quickly in 2025, they may find selling their home, especially smaller ones, easier. What's your take on that? What if you're a seller, Paul, what comes to your mind, or what key points would you remember on that, or how will that affect you?
Before stepping into the mindset of the seller, I mean, I know that all real estate is local. So some markets where they still have strong employment, strong, employer sector.
Right.
You got like your Washington, D.C. area, your California with the Silicon Valley. There's still a lot of high net worth people over there buying houses. There's demand is still high. As long as that employment remains high, then those types of markets aren't going to see much impact.
Exactly. Right. So it further says that you will likely see a smaller rise in home values. Sellers may have to be more flexible in the new year. Some homeowners have felt stuck in the ultra low mortgage rates they locked in during the pandemic. Many have resisted listing their home so they don't have to get a new mortgage with a rate that can be up to twice as much interest as what they're currently paying. However, mortgage rates are expected to stabilize at around 6% in 2025, which will encourage reluctant sellers to return. And this is from the NAR from Lawrence Yun. If you look at one more point when it comes to sellers, it says that it should be easier to sell your home. Sellers who have struggled to find a buyer may finally be able to seal the deal in 2025 as more buyers are expected to enter the market. So one thing I want to point out is that reports are saying that it's going to be easy to sell. There's going to be more homes coming in the market. But on the other hand, we are listening and hearing and reading from the corporate executives, from the analysts, from the real estate experts that buyers are having a hard time. The affordability in California, the home affordability index is around 11%. I don't know what it is in Cincinnati and Ohio, but 11% is this much. So on one hand, the buyers are struggling, but on the other hand, they're saying there's homes we sell. So if you're a consumer, how do you think about that? How do you align that?
It's a tough situation to be in buyers these days. Is costs are up, expenses are up, mortgage rates are up. So when you look at those initial numbers, if you can come in with a good excuse me, with a good down payment program on a mortgage, you qualify for a low down payment, either conventional or one of the special, the FHA or VA loans. So it's still, you have to look at the overall cost that you're paying, your principal and interest, and then if you're escrowing your insurance and your taxes too, that adds to your total monthly payment. So when a lot of people see that, and then they also compare, well, let's look at what rent is, today, and we compare that price and look at rent. And in a lot of these markets, the rent these days is less than what it costs to buy a home.
Right. And talking about rent, I was reading a report a couple of days ago, and I've seen a lot of videos because I have a YouTube channel. I look at a lot of videos that other agents and other experts put out. The videos I saw, and it really took me by surprise, is all these years, the videos I've seen is buy versus rent, why you should buy versus renting. Buying is better than renting. Now I'm saying the tune turning around where they say, hey, for the next couple of years, and depending on your financial situation, how much down you have, what your income is, and where you are you in Ohio? Are you in Miami? Are you in New York? Renting may be better than buying. Renting may be cheaper by 20-30% of your monthly payment. Because what's happening is, if you buy a house today, at least in California, it used to be that 28-30% of your paycheck went to your home payment. These days it's 35-40% and increasing. But renting may be cheaper. It may be 25-30% or less than 35%. So some are saying, it's better to rent than buy. I mean, have you heard of that, or what's your take on that, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, the number of the hot markets too, especially, it also depends on your long-term circumstances. If you're there for temporary job, you're only going to be there for 4 or 5 years, definitely renting makes more sense. Because the transaction costs for buying and selling a home can get quite high versus, you're there, you just rent. Once your lease is up, you can, give the proper notice on the lease terms that you're leaving, move on to the next place. Right. So it makes sense in that, long term, if you're going to stay there long term, then over the long term, depending on how long, I mean, the average home ownership these days, I think, is like 6 to 7 years before people decide to sell. Right. So same thing too, is if you plan on living in the house for only 7 years, right, with the rents being lower compared to the costs, monthly costs of owning the home, it might make sense just to rent for now. Right. And then either when your income adjusts or when the mortgage rates adjust or housing prices adjust, then that might be the time to take a look. Does it make sense now to own rather than rent? Yep. Yeah. I just want to take a quick minute and say, I see a lot of viewers online. I can't tell who they are, but if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you're a renter, if you're a buyer, if you're a seller thinking about selling, let us know what you're thinking, what area you're in, so we can share that with the other audience if you're live. And if you're watching this as a recording after the live, please make comments. Let us know what's going on, because, market is hyper local, like Paul mentioned. What's happening in Southern California, in Orange County, where I'm at, may not be happening in Ohio or Florida. Look at what's happening in Florida, and we'll talk about Florida because Florida is taking a beating right now, and it may be
the leader in where the home market is going. So we'll talk about that, even though we don't want to talk about it. It's not a good scene, but we'll chat about that. So do make comments, give us your feedback, have any questions. We're here to help you, and we'll go from there. So let's switch some gears here, Paul, and let's talk about the buyers. If you're a buyer, it says here, let me see if I can share the screen here again. Present, stop screen, and I'm going to share my screen again with buying a house. Okay, so if you're a buyer, I'm just going to switch gears, and then buying a house in 2025. Here's what you need to know, and we'll talk about a couple of points and how it impacts your buying. So the key takeaways, again, this is from also from Investopedia, and this is not my opinion or it's an article that I'm sharing. It says here that the housing market may become slightly more affordable in 2025, which is a contradiction to what I'm hearing, but here's a report. Economists forecast mortgage rates may fall, but not by much. However, this could be enough for more homeowners to list their homes for sale. But the catch is, if the rates drop, a lot of buyers will come on the market that'll jack up the home prices. That's another scenario. More homes for sale means more options for buyers and less competition for each listing. That could result in slower home price growth and even cut to asking prices in some cases. These are the key takeaways. Further along, it says here that mortgage rates may fall, but not by much. Let's look at those mortgage rates, what's going on. But before I mention anything, to me, statistically, 6 or 7% is a norm for mortgage rates. If you look at the last 50-year history, the average mortgage rate is around 7%. That includes the 18% in the 80s and the 3% in the 21s. But the 6%, 7% is pretty much a normal if you look at an average. The problem the current buyers are having is they saw the 3%, and now when they go to buy 7%, it's a shock. So it's a psychological shock. So that's, the mortgage rates is a big bomb for real estate. Hopefully it'll come down. It came down briefly last couple of months ago, but then went back up. You could have more options. As more listings come on the market, you might have more options. Prices won't rise as rapidly, but they say their prices are going to go up, and I think they are going to go up. So let's chat about buying a home. Paul, what do you think? What's your take? And we're not predictors, or we don't know what's going to happen, but based on what you've been seeing and talking to your clients and your investors, on a general level, not your local level, let's talk about how we can help the buyers, or what buyers should be thinking or doing.
Yeah, if somebody's ready to buy in this market, that start the process right to get your financial house in order. First thing you should be doing is looking at your credit score. Do you have any issues with your credit score? Start the repair process if you need to. Chat with some lenders early on. Some lenders have programs and counselors that can help people out, point you in the right direction, such as pay off this debt first, or pay off that debt, or reduce your credit overall utilization. And then, so that's one of the bigger advantages. The better credit score you have, the better mortgage rate you can get. Mm-hmm. And as we know, the lower mortgage rate means lower payments. So that can save, especially if you're going to stay there for a long time. That's going to save you a lot of money over that long term. So work on that. Chat with your local agent, such as Mike or myself, and get ideas. And we're happy to sit down with you. We've got a strong network of referrals as well. If you need to talk with different lenders, reach out to your local agent and say, hey, I need you to, I'm planning on buying a house within the next 6 months or so, and need to start the process now. Do you have any lenders you can recommend? And then start the process from there, and start, once you get that, sit down with that lender, then they'll give you the idea, okay, this is the price range of the home that you can afford. So that's when you start your actual shopping, versus doing it first is hopping on the MLS website, say, hey, well, I like this house, I like that house. It can lead to disappointment, because that might be, out of your price range. It might even be below your price range. You realize, well, I can actually afford a much better home. Right.
Yeah. One of the points you mentioned, and that's a very good point, is to improve your credit and all that and increase your affordability, is to reduce your debt or pay off your debts. I went to a meeting today. It was a mastermind meeting with about 20 other realtors in our company, and with the broker and the owner. And one of the things they said or that came up is that today, and I'm talking 2025 today, one of the sad thing that has happened and is going to happen more and more, two things are happening. One is that the average consumer, his credit card debt has increased significantly in 2024. In fact, it has gotten so bad. I read a report 2 months ago that the credit card debt has been the highest ever in the history of credit cards. It has gotten so bad that some of the younger generation, we talked about this in our meeting, in certain areas, maybe it was California, I don't know, what some of these homeowners are doing, and most of these are like 35 to 50-year-olds, they have so much credit card debt. And as you know, the rates are 25, 30% today in credit card debts. They're actually selling their house because they have equity in there, so they can pay off the credit card debts because they are 60,000, 50,000, 80,000. It's so high. Your mortgage payment on your is $500 right there. So they're selling their home with equity, paying off the debt, and then buying smaller homes so they don't have the payment. It's a sad situation, but this is reality. And that's part of the American dream we're talking about, is that when you go buy a car, cars are expensive. If you're married, if you have college kids, if you have adult kids, you have 2 or 3 or 4 cars, high payment, right? Your insurance is high, your HOA is high, your property tax is high. It's very difficult to keep your home or to buy a home. And things like these, the credit card debt, your high gas prices, your high mortgage payment, your high car payments, your high telephone bills, your internet bills, it's just out of reach. And I'm not trying to be negative, but this is the reality. And that's cutting into the American dream. That's exactly what we're talking about, Do you see that as a valid point, Paul? Have you seen credit card issues in your area, or?
Not from some of the clients I interact with, but yeah, I've been reading the similar articles talking about the overall numbers have been going up, and it's not a bad strategy, that the one you said, where you sell your existing house, cash out that equity, and then move into a smaller house, more affordable house, and pay off those credit card bills.
Right.
But the ideal thing is, don't get back into that trap again of running up debt on your credit cards.
Exactly. Right.
It's not going to help then. It's
Nope.
if you sold your house then and then you downsized, but then you're in the same position where you just ran up your credit cards.
Right.
So I think consumer spending, we do need to, be able to eat and afford our rent or our mortgage, whatnot too, but we don't want to go overboard to the point where we can't afford just the basics in life.
Right. Yeah. I want to switch some gears and look at this report, which came out in December 2024. And obviously we heard that the rates will come down, but here's another report. This is, it says here that house hunters won't see relief anytime soon. Mortgage rates set to stay sky high. So some reports are saying the rates will come down, but this report is saying that it's going to stay high because 7% is high, even 6% is high when you compare it to 3%. And psychologically, especially if you're a seller thinking about selling and you have a 3% or 4%, to you the 6% is very high, or 6.5% is very high. In fact, it's sky high. I sold a house to one of my very close family members, and they got 2.5%. And now they want to buy a rental property, because they got some extra money and all that. And I say, hey, and they talked to the lender, and they quoted her 6.7%. And she said, oh my God, that's too high. It's not high, that's the norm, So I think the mortgage, when we read the reports, you have to look at what state are you looking at. Are you comparing today's rate to 3%, or are you comparing today's rate at the average history? Let's look at what this article is saying. It says here that mortgage rates will continue to average above 6% next year, and home prices will keep rising. The Realtor.com economic research team predicts it in its 2025 housing forecast. And we mentioned that earlier. Prices are not going to drop. The report forecasts that mortgage rates will average 6.3% across 2025, which I think is pretty reasonable. But, what has my thing to do with that? And then the end of the year, it could go down to 6.2%. That's a leg down from 6.7% average expected across 2024 by year end, but still well above 4% historic average recorded from 2013 to 2019. So that's what the problem is. From 2019 to now, it was average 4, and now it's a 6.3. So it's playing games. If there's a first-time home buyer did not see the 3%, they're still buying homes at 6%, 7%. But home sellers who are selling to buy another house, they're staying put, say, I'm not going to sell at 3% and buy at 3. And that's part of the housing shortage that's causing the housing shortage. So what's the situation, or what can be done here? if
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff to unpack there, and the big challenge for sellers, as you mentioned earlier.
Right.
Not only do you have to sell, but then you have to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
And then if your house, you're buying a house that's more expensive, and then your mortgage rates are much higher, that will cause challenges. That'll make you rethink. I mean, I personally went through this process myself, and we were in like a high tax district area. We moved over here to send our kids to the schools over here, and now they're both graduated, they're in college. It's like, do we need to stay here anymore? But we also have a lower mortgage interest rate, so it's like, there's a big trade-off there. Do I want to get rid of the that low mortgage rate, and then get a different slightly cheaper house, but then the rates are higher? Does it the numbers are still kind of they're not really offsetting. They're almost kind of similar, if not higher, with the new purchase.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's not confusing, but it's nerve-wracking to think, hey, what's going to happen? Are the prices going up? Are the prices going to come down? Are the rates going up? Property taxes going up? Insurance going up? HOA is going up? Maintenance going up? It's fearful to get into, especially when the home prices were here 5 years ago and they're here right now, and you're going to buy it over here. It's nerve-wracking for a buyer. I mean, if I was to sell and buy, I'd be nervous myself. So I don't blame the buyers, and I don't blame the home sellers, because I did think about selling my house in 2019 or 2017. Then I remodeled my house, and then COVID hit, and now I'm stuck here and I'm not moving anywhere. I have a 3% mortgage rate. I'm not going anywhere. So I'm one of those sellers who thought about moving 5 years ago, but now I'm stuck and I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. I don't want to let go my 3%. I don't want to let go my house. I don't want to sell this house and pay more property taxes, pay more insurance, find new neighbors, and settle again with new friendship. I got my neighbors. I'm content. Yeah, so I'm one of those guys that we're talking about. So I want to talk about the impact. Let's switch some gears. We've talked about the interest rate, the property tax, and insurance and all that. Let's talk about the new administration coming in, right? The Trump administration starts, January 20th? Today, they were officially, whatever happened, something today. We won't get into that, but officially the ballot was counted or confirmed. So he's going to be inaugurated on the 20th, I believe.
20th, yes.
Right. So let's talk about some of the things that may impact not only the economy, but how the economy will impact the housing. And one of them is tariffs. One of them is the mass deportation. If that happens, mass deportation, how will it affect housing? And the other thing is the deregulation that he's talking about the permits and the housing and buying land. So let's talk about those. Let's start with the tariffs. What's your take if the tariffs are high in China or Canada or Mexico or whatever? How is that going to impact home prices, or will it have any impact at all?
Looking at Canada in particular, I know we get a lot of lumber from them. We get some of our energy supplies come from them, and so that you increase tariffs on Canadian goods, that's going to automatically increase the prices of lumber, and then that lumber that we need to build those houses, that will ultimately could push the price of the housing up as well too.
Mm-hmm. And if the tariffs are set, and we're talking Canada as an example, how soon will the impact be on the housing market, if any at all? It is going to be immediate, or is it going to take a year? Because we don't know how soon it's going to happen. I mean,
there's a lot of
promised a lot of things going to happen on day one. And the Ukraine war in day one, and the Israel war in day one, mass deportation day one. So we don't know how soon or how late. What's your take from reading articles and things like that?
Yeah, anytime the government does anything, it takes a little while for things to finally for us to feel an impact. So even with the tariffs, I mean, we've seen in the past sometimes that the President Trump has used tariffs as more of a negotiating tool, that we're going to impose tariffs unless you remove these tariffs. And So then in the process of negotiating, no tariffs were increased.
Mm-hmm.
We got some tariffs reduced on US based goods, and I guess everybody won in the end for that.
Mm-hmm.
So if they use that strategy this time, remains to be seen. We could see, or at the same time too, if he's strongly in favor of, bolstering the U.S. domestic economy, the domestic manufacturing, then tariffs are definitely, will be on the table, and that because that benefits the local businesses, the local manufacturing,
Right.
the local industry.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about the mass deportation. One thing I read last time when I did the live stream couple of weeks back, one of the stats that I saw was that 13% of the construction labor is quote illegal. There's immigrants that are legal and immigrants that are illegal. But in the construction, and of course, when they say 13% are illegal, I would say 25% are in the, my guess is there's a lot more. So if there's mass deportation, we're talking 5 million, 10 million, 15 million. We don't know if it's going to happen in the first 2 months or first 2 years or on day one. We don't know, right? What impact will that have directly on the housing market, if any?
I think that would also result in increased prices too. We got using a lot of laborers there to help put these houses up, and then a lot of laborers to do the painting, do the other maintenance and whatnot too. So not only your new housing expense will go up, but your maintenance costs as well will go up too. So in the end result, will result in an increase in inflation over time.
Mm-hmm. So you see that if there is a mass deportation, of course, the big thing is if, because they could deport 1,000 a month for the next 4 or 5 years. We don't know. Then there'll be no impact. But if they say, hey, we're going to get the military and get all these planes and pop them out of here in 3-4 months, that was the campaign. And I'm not being political here. I'm just trying to give you facts. Then there will be an impact. I personally feel there will be an impact only if there's a mass deportation in the millions. If it's, 1,000 from this state and 1,000 from this state, and the criminals first and the misdemeanor guys second, and then there's no impact. So if there is a mass deportation, we will see a significant increase in home prices, especially new construction and regular home prices, because who's going to do a lot of labor work is immigrants. A lot of labor work, painting, carpeting, farming, waitressing, and of course there are a lot of professionals out there too, but we're talking homes and construction. There are a lot of professionals, immigrants and non-immigrants doing other things, and we respect that, but we're talking housing right now, so there will be an impact. The third thing we're going to talk about, the deregulation, right? The deregulation in housing, the permitting, making some federal land into housing. What's the impact of that you feel that could happen, that we could see, that could benefit the sellers and buyers?
It could be beneficial too. A lot of the regulations that we see that also comes from the local places where these houses are being put up.
Mm-hmm.
So while there might be some federal impact from the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, that
Mm-hmm.
You need to do such and such things with waterways and such things with land and whatnot, so that might help in that point. But unless the local governments start reducing their red tape, so to speak, as well too, then still might have some issues there to work through before. I don't think it's going to happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And but if it does reduce the regulation, reduce the red tape, though, that would result in prices coming down, because then that's less hiring attorneys, less hiring architects, less hiring certain professionals that you need these environmental engineers to design a flood plan, and if your house is close, if these housing is close.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. All right. So we talked about the sellers and buyers, and then we also talked about if the buyers don't buy, the activity for sellers becomes slower, right? Because if the affordability drops, if the rates go to 7.5% or the prices keep going up, there's less and less buyer pool. So I want to talk about the perspective of, if you're a seller, what would be the strategy for the sellers? And here's two, and we can talk about that. A solution for attracting buyers from sellers, right? Number one is pricing competitively to attract buyers despite affordability concerns. And the second thing is offering incentives such as rate buy downs or covering closing cost. If the market really tightens up, these are a couple of things that can be done, right? Are there other things we can talk about that the sellers can attract buyers so they can sell and move up or move down,
I think
and help the buyers? I mean,
the main thing is these days, majority of buyers are looking for move-in ready homes. So if your home is not, move-in ready, it's got those unique colors, unique design, that's going to be a turnoff to buyers, then you might want to look at, getting rid of that carpet that's, looks great in a certain type of decor, but when the new buyer coming in, they're looking for something more neutral. They're looking for neutral paint colors, neutral carpets, neutral flooring. So then sellers can start with that, same thing as I mentioned before, talk with your local real estate agent. They'll let you know, okay, this is what's hot in the market. This is what buyers are looking for in the market. I myself, I'm happy to walk with potential people who want to sell their home, pre-listing agreement, walk through the home, point out things, we're trying not trying to offend anybody, but we're letting you know, this is how you get your products. The house you have is actually a product. I mean, we fall in love with our houses. We raise children there. We have our pets there. We have major events and memories over there. But at the same time too, when it comes to selling, that's just for us. That's not for the buyers. The buyers want to make their own new memories there. They don't want to see your memories. So you kind of got to neutralize that palette, make sure everything is ready for the buyers to come in. And, so that's where a local agent, can help you out, sit down with you, kind of point out things that, this things need works. And this will help you get the best result too. Because the buyers who see the house, they come in there, it presents well online. They come in, it presents well in person. They're going to be ready to make that offer, and then a strong offer as well too.
Right, yeah. And the other thing that the sellers have to keep in mind is that, let's say I'm the seller and you're the buyer, right? And of course, we're talking about typical buyer. A typical buyer, one of the biggest challenges for a buyer, at least from the buyer that I've talked to and I've come across, the biggest challenge for the buyer is coming up with the down payment, right? Whether it's 3.5% government loan or 10% down or 20% down. So let's say somebody buys a house and they did everything they can. Like in Anaheim Hills, for example, a house is $1 million. Average home price is $1 million. If somebody took 2, 3, 4 years to collect the 10% down, which is $100,000 plus closing costs, another $30,000. When they buy a house, they've depleted the money. They've saved, borrowed, mom gave some money, or they had bonuses or tax refunds. They buy a house. The last thing they want to do is come in and change the carpet or paint or do your yard work. They don't have any money left because they've struggled and strived in a nice way and used all the money, and they don't want to spend another $5,000. They don't have the $5,000 cash to paint the house or another $10,000 to come and do the flooring. One, they don't have the money. One, they don't have the time because they go to work, mom and dad, or two brothers, two sisters. They both go to work 9 to 5. Weekend, they have chores, laundry, gardening. They don't have time to meet a contractor and get a quote, get 3 quotes, and do all the work. So the more talking to buyers, if you're a seller, price it right, move-in condition, like Paul mentioned earlier, have it in move-in condition, have some upgrades, have a good curb appeal. So when the buyer comes in, he buys it, he wants to move in, or he or she wants to move in Friday, Saturday, go to work on Monday.
Yeah.
And come in the evenings and unpack boxes and take 2-3 months to. So that's a scenario. That's what the sellers have to think. Is you have to be competitive. You have to offer them seller credit if they want, have them do inspections, have them feel very comfortable. Otherwise, buyers are very nervous today, and any little thing can throw them off and they go buy another house. So that's something that the sellers want to keep in mind. Any other points that the seller should keep in mind when it comes to buyers' mentality when they're buying?
As you mentioned that, the competitiveness, if you got multiple listings out there, so then, not only you're competing for buyers, but you're competing against other home sellers. So you need to look at your, in terms of your pricing, as you mentioned, are you competitively priced or are you overpriced compared to those other homes?
Right.
Why would a buyer come and buy your home if you're clearly 10% above the other premium, the premium price of the homes? They can get the same quality home, same condition home, maybe street over, maybe, unless you have some super great location. In most cases, most homes are pretty similar.
Mhm.
You're looking at the bedroom count, the bathroom count, what's your square footage, and then that's where you're comparing your prices, your similarities there. So make sure you're priced within that range.
Right, right. And of course, if the sellers did a lot of upgrades, they got brand new carpet, brand new paint, brand new remodel kitchen, of course you can ask for more because the buyers will pay for it. They'll see it. On the other hand, if you're a seller and a lot of the seniors or have a lot of the sellers have medical issues or don't have any money up front and they haven't updated their home, carpet's old, paint's old, dishwashers are old, kitchen is old. I just saw a house today that needs a lot of work. They haven't done anything in 20 years. The comps are 950, but they're listing the house for 800,000, and one just sold 950, but it needs a lot of work, at least 100,000 worth of work. So price it according to the condition in your market.
Yeah,
If it's a fixer, price it lower. If you got upgrades, if you got a view, if you have a big yard, or if you have a pool, price it up and buyers will pay you. But then there's another factor that the buyers have to look at, and this is a big factor these days, and I want to touch on that. Is that what is the impact of institutional buyers, the corporate buyers? We've heard about the Blackstone buying thousands of homes, or the corporations coming in and offering all cash. How big of an impact is that, Paul? Do you think when it comes to buyer competition, or when sellers want to sell, these investors want to buy lower?
in certain neighborhoods that I've seen activity where these institutional investors will come in, they'll make an all cash offer, and they usually don't ask for much. They'll do an inspection. They're not even like a full inspection. They'll bring in a contractor that they've hired, walk the house, do like a checklist. Anything major they'll take care of. They know they're going to repaint it. They know they're going to recarpet it if it needs carpeting, because they're planning on renting it, rather than
Right.
flipping it. They're just going to clean it up, give it the B grade finishes, so the renters are happy. And then as soon as the seller moves out,
Mm-hmm.
30 days to turn it and get it ready, it'll be on the market for rent. So the problem for buyers who are looking to own or occupy is just the competitive nature of it. And
Yep.
I've dealt with this while this was more on the investment side. I had an all cash offer from an investment property, and then compared to, there were some who were trying to do owner occupied and with FHA, but even though the cash offer was slightly lower, it was an all cash offer.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to close in 2 weeks, a quick inspection. So unfortunately, it beats out a lot of these offers. So the home buyers do need to be competitive in that, and make sure that they're ready up front. They've gone through the entire pre-approval process. Last thing a seller wants to hear is, hey, you got a strong offer, but your pre-approval is not that strong. You didn't use a great lender, or you didn't even go through the full process. They only gave you a conditional pre-approval.
Right.
And then you're going to run into issues. And then that cash offer suddenly looks like, hey, and then the cash buyer will say, I can even let you seller stay for next to 30 to 60 days,
Mm-hmm.
help you move out, and that entices it more for the seller, unfortunately.
Right. Yep, exactly. Right. Okay. I want to take a minute and let the viewers that, hey, if you're viewing this, I want to find out in this market, and when I say this challenging market, 2024 market, and we're entering 2025 market, what is the biggest concerns or experience you've had in this market? Please share, because we want to find out whether you live or you're watching afterwards. Share us with it. What was your biggest challenge or experience in this market, or do you expect to be? So on that note, I want to change some gears, and we want to give some, not advice, but some pointers to the sellers and buyers, Paul. Maybe we can chat about this. So if it was for homeowners, what is a call to action to the homeowners if they're thinking about selling their house and moving down or moving up to a bigger house or a better community? What are some of the things homeowners can do? Obviously, one thing is talk to a realtor, and Paul knows a lot of realtors. I know a lot of realtor. He's in Cincinnati, but if you need any realtor nationwide in your local neighborhood, that's an expert and knows what's happening not only locally but nationwide, hit us up, direct message me, or put a comment here, and we'll refer you to an agent. Absolutely no obligation. Even if you just want some advice or some opinions, you don't have to sell or list or buy. Just we'll help you out. So let's talk about a couple of things we can help the sellers to do if they're thinking about selling and moving. What are some of the pointers that you can give them to sell the house or to prepare to buy? how to use that equity, etc. What are some of the things that you may want to point out to the sellers they can prepare?
I guess first thing I would just suggest is research the market where you wanna, you're upgrading or, downsizing to. Do they have what you're looking for over there? If they don't have what you need, whether it be upsizing or
Mhm.
downsizing, then you need to reconsider, okay, does it make sense for me to move? Do I want to move into an apartment for a short term until something does come along, that I find that would be willing to make an offer on? So there's a lot of considerations there, and then look at the condition of your house, as mentioned before, and as Mike mentioned before. Have an agent walk your house and give you some ideas. Okay, you're going to sell, but if your sale now, the agent says, okay, you're a little outdated there. As Mike said, if you want to underprice it, price it according to condition, then yes. But if you're looking for the premium price, then you're going to need to bring in some money
Mhm.
to make those upgrades, to redo the carpet, redo the paint, upgrade appliances and whatnot, so that way the buyers are ready to, once they see the property, they're ready to make that offer, and you can
Right.
start the next step there.
Right, right. What are some of the things sellers can do? Let's say in my case, I'm thinking about selling in summer. If I'm giving an example, and I'm the kind of seller that I don't want to spend any money. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to call a realtor. Then they're going to push me and shove me. So I have that mentality. So what would you tell me to start doing in anticipation of selling without talking to somebody? Um, for example, decluttering or little things that they can do that does not cost a lot of money, but will improve the value of your home or the curb appeal. What can they do?
Yeah, as you mentioned, decluttering, a fresh coat of paint, neutral colors, depending on how old your paint is. If it hasn't been painted in a number of years,
Hmm.
that's a some people like to do it themselves, the DIY. That's
Yeah, they like weekends. They like to, yeah.
save some money that way. Decluttering, just make sure that the space of the house is what you can see versus, you don't want buyers coming in there and saying, oh, this is a nice play set or whatever in the living room, where it should be a living room, and people should be imagining that they can come in here, hang out with their friends, and just
Mhm.
just relax.
Right.
If you got excess furniture, remove that excess furniture. Any unique things or pricey things, you got these pricey collectibles, pricey artwork, I'd recommend just putting that away, especially if you're listed on the market, you've got other agents coming through, or you got an open house. Unfortunately, it does happen. People walk in and something walks out that shouldn't have walked out. You
Mhm.
lose something. It's better be safe than sorry. Secure that away, put it somewhere else. Another
Right.
great tip that I've used for some clients in the past. Okay, you don't want to talk to an agent right now.
Yep.
That's fine. Call a
Right.
friend and just say, hey, walk through my house as if you're a buyer. What do you notice? What do you think I
Right.
should fix? What do you think I should do?
Right.
Just ask for an opinion. Don't be offended by it. This is, you're looking for the best way to sell that product,
Yeah.
and then you want to improve it to the best point where the buyers can say, okay, yeah, I like this house.
Right. Right. Yeah. Talking about decluttering, I did a video a couple of weeks ago. It's on my website. You can look it up on my channel. It's called the 5 Ds of selling. And what I talked about in that video, the 5 Ds of selling that doesn't cost you anything. One of them is decluttering, depersonalizing, right? On the wall, if you have your pictures, family, granddaughters, grandpas, take those out. Deep cleaning, right? What was it? Deep cleaning, deodorizing. And there was a fifth one. I forgot what it is. It's decluttering, depersonalizing, deep cleaning, deodorizing, and there's a fifth one on there. But anyway, the video is there, and this doesn't cost you anything. Absolutely zero cost, other than you want to paint if you want to, or if you want to change your carpet to vinyl or tile, that's going to cost you. But if you don't want to spend a lot of money, you want to increase your profits, these and you can look at the video. Let me give you the title of.
Looks like we might have lost the host. So just to add on his
Oh, sorry.
Deodorizing. Yeah, I lost you there. I was just
Sorry.
going to
Yeah, I
cover
don't
a
know
quick
what happened.
tip on the deodorizing. Is the what you don't want to do is you don't want to cover up scents. You want to have no scent at all. So when somebody walks in, you don't want any potpourri. You don't want any fancy smells that overpower the buyers when they come in. Some buyers are just sensitive in general. They might get a headache. They might walk out, say, forget this. Other buyers are being like, other buyers are going to be concerned, like, what is this smell covering? Is there something
Right.
else wrong with the house? So even
Mhm.
though it might be nice to, you have that open house, bake those cookies, but make sure the house smells neutral. That way the buyers, when they do walk in, it's, they're not surprised by anything. It's like, okay,
Right.
the
Yeah.
house smells fine. There's no smell. That's why it smells fine.
Exactly. Yeah. I think they want a natural smell, right? Not artificial smell. Correct? Is that
Yes. Yeah.
okay? Oh, okay. I found the fifth one. So the fifth one is a tricky one, and the fifth thing you can do is what we call staging, but it's called dressing up the house. So maybe you want to give some pointers on, you talked about depersonalizing, but let's talk about dressing it up, which is staging. So how would a seller typically do without costing them a lot of money? What some of the tips can you give them?
I would say fresh, clean curtains, depending on your curtains. If you got those in there, you could always even go to like a thrift store. A lot of them you'll find just brand new and packaged stuff that somebody didn't want for whatever reason. They donated. You can swap out old curtains, especially if they're neutral looking, your
Mm-hmm.
whites, your light grays, that kind of match the, you know, don't contrast too much with the decor, but also match the new paints that you put in there. So that way, it's that you've got that neutral palette there, so that people
Right.
come in and they can imagine their own stuff in there. So those are kind of you know, curtains are one thing, cleaning up your blinds, just you know, taking a duster, hiring a cleaner to come out, clean those things up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then a lot of the people, at least a lot of my friends, when I go to the house, there's a lot of stuff in the house. I have a lot of stuff in my house. So one of the things I could do is rearrange the sofa, take out too many lamps or too many stools or too many dead plants or plastic plants or silk plants. All that clutter with dressing it up, you take it out or rearrange it nicely. You might have a lamp, two lamps in one room, maybe put one in a different room. Your kitchen, you might have your coffee machine here and this here and this here, just rearrange them,
Yeah,
things like that, right? I mean,
empty closets too, so that people can see the
yeah,
closets, not
exactly.
what's in
Dress
the
up your
closet.
house. It's called restaging. Put things around, move things around. You might have on one wall a lot of pictures and then nothing on the other side or nothing in the hallway. So just space them out and make the house look bigger and declutter, deep clean, and that goes a long way. So that really helps the sellers if you're under a budget or profit minded, which we all are. These are the free stuff you can do prior to your realtor coming in, and that way they don't say, hey, they don't give you a big laundry list. You already done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Then you can do some things to improve it more. So let's go to the buyers now. If I was a buyer, what are some of the tips we can give buyers in today's market for them to prepare? Obviously, pre-qualify, but once they're ready to pre-qualify, the lender says, you know what, Mike or Paul, you guys are ready. You qualified up to $400,000. You put in 10% down. Go buy. What are the things they can do in their search or working with a realtor or making an offer and things like that? Let's give them a little pointers in
Yeah,
this market.
research your neighborhoods. What are you looking for? I mean, do you have a family? Do you have kids who need to go to a certain school? You're looking for certain school districts. You're looking for, neighborhoods that are walkable friendly, or that, people were pet friendly. So do your research ahead of time. Look at the
Mhm.
neighborhoods and drive those neighborhoods. You don't have to necessarily, bring your real estate agent along, although some of them are happy to kind of drive you around and tour you around, especially if you're out of town. But if you're local, drive those neighborhoods, drive at different times of the day. Don't just come in once, come during the day, see how it looks, drive
Mhm.
through it at night, see how it looks. Is it some place you feel, yeah, this would be a great place to have a home? Look at the local amenities, stop by local parks, go to the local shopping centers, the shopping
Mhm.
plazas, see if
Right,
there's stuff there that, that draws you to the place versus you go to
right,
a place where you think, okay, this is not necessarily what I need. I need, I've got young kids. I want a daycare. I would, I want a place close by with a dog park, that type of thing. So then you've done that research ahead of time. You're kind of narrowing down, okay, I like these neighborhoods. You can tell your agent, these are the neighborhoods I just want to search in. Your agent can set up those searches for you.
Correct.
And there you just narrow down, figure out what's your bedroom count, your bathroom count.
Mm-hmm.
Do you certain areas in our area, we have basements. So if you need want a basement there, that's something you can specify.
Right.
Especially becomes great places for the kids to play. You finish out the basement. You got a nice little rec space there. So a bunch of different things that they can do. And, just make sure you, with the going back to the credit thing too, make sure you're not making any big purchases, no new cars, try not to change
Yeah.
things if you don't have to. Don't buy your furniture yet. Don't go get credit cards. Don't go get new store cards because you're going to buy furniture at this store. You don't want to touch your credit at all. You can do all that after you closed on the house, then the lender's not going to really be as concerned. But prior to that, just straight and steady, whatever you went in with before in terms of your debt, your liabilities, whatnot.
Right.
Keep that as it is. Unless it's an emergency, your car dies, you need to buy a new car. Okay, that's a different story. Talk to your lender ahead of time and say, hey, my car died. I need a car. It's going to hit my credit. Let them know and then go from there.
Yeah. So let's assume that a buyers that you're talking about found a house, made an offer on a $400,000 house. They offered full price because there was other offers, so they get full price and they got the house. Now they open escrow, or in a lot of states, I don't know, Ohio or other states, you use an attorney. What are some of the things they need to do for sure? Like inspection, appraisal, things like that. Let's let them know so they know what to expect when they do buy a house, when they go into escrow. What are some of the things they have to do or must do?
Usually initially in our state, they will have the home inspection done first.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of time, especially if you're using a mortgage to purchase a home, you need an appraisal. So the lender will usually hold off on ordering the appraisal because in a lot of cases, the buyer is paying for that appraisal. Why pay for the appraisal if the home is not going to meet your inspection standards? The home inspector points out something, it's a major flaw for you, major risk for you. You decide, okay, I want to cancel now, send in a cancellation within the proper timeframes and you can walk away and you save money on not paying for the appraisal. So let's say the home inspection goes fine. You like the house, no major issues, no major red flags. Then the appraisal comes up, you'll let the lender know, okay, inspection is fine. Please go ahead and order the appraisal. Same time too, you want to go start talking to the insurance companies right away. If you've got an issue with insurability, if you can't get insurance, then that blows your mortgage right there. Mortgage requires you to have homeowners insurance. So if you can't get homeowners insurance, that's going to cause your mortgage to fail. Give you another reason that, okay, for whatever reason, this house can't get insured. It might be a lot of claims in the past. It could be it's in a flood zone. There could be some other issue too that the insurance companies, especially we see in Florida with all those hurricanes and
or California fire zones, and we have them. I'm in a fire zone myself, so
let's
talk about the key thing right now. You mentioned is getting insurance, especially if you're buying a townhouse or a house with associations. That insurance is even more. So the first thing I do, or I used to do, getting an insurance 2 days before we close escrow. Now, the day we open escrow, I call my sellers and say, hey, start talking to insurance companies, especially if it's a townhouse or a condo, because in Southern California, a lot of the townhomes are getting insurance, but they are skyrocketing high. If your association is $300 a month, your insurance is another additional $200, $300 a month, which is very high, or $400 a month. So that's a big issue right now. So we just carry on, but I wanted to point out more that especially if you have an HOA, be very cautious. Get the insurance going the day you sign the contract,
Yeah, exactly. Because that's can play a major factor in your overall monthly payment.
Yep.
You've got that taxes and insurance. That insurance, if it's pretty high, that's going to increase your payment overall as well too.
And that's what's happening. I mentioned earlier as we started, I'll mention Florida. The biggest challenge that Florida is having is because of that flood disasters and the condo disaster where that condo building fell and crashed and killed a lot of people. There's a lot of new regulations where the buildings over 3 stories have to have those inspections, and the homeowners association have tripled, quadrupled. They've gone from $200 to $1,000 a month, and they've got upfront fees of $20,000. Plus the insurance has gone up. and that's causing a big crisis right now. Just what we're talking about, the insurance is causing a major crisis in Florida. There's over 50,000 vacant homes sitting there right now. Homes are sitting there for 90 days, 120 days, not selling. There's price reductions. Anything else that you know about Florida, what's happening in Florida? You closer there, or maybe,
Not in Florida in particular, but the stories I've heard too is one thing is to ask, you bring up a homeowners association, is to look at the financials. Usually the owner can ask for the financials as a member of the homeowners association. So if there's like big deficit in there, eventually that homeowners association is going to have to come back, go to all the owners and say, hey, we're short $100,000. We've got however many homes, we're going to divide that up evenly, and you need to pay that next year so we can come up and meet our reserves. So there's always that risk, though. You get into place where it's a badly managed homeowners association.
Right.
They're in the hole, then current sellers might not even know. It's not necessarily the seller's fault. This is whoever managing the HOA. And then you purchase the house, you close on it, and the next year you find out, hey, you owe an extra $50,000 because they're or there's some assessment going on that the HOA needs to deal with. So that could be a big surprise. So it's always worthwhile to do some research, work with your agent, take a look at the HOA documents, read about the HOA documents. If you need a fence for your dog and they say no fences, that might be a reason to say, okay, this house, this area is not for me.
Right. So going back to the buyer, they did the inspection, they did the appraisal, if they had to back out for whatever reasons, what rights do they have to back out, and when can they back out? If I'm a buyer and something happened, and the inspection is fine, the appraisal is fine, but something happened personally or something, and if I want to back out, what are some of the rights that I have as a buyer to back out, and when?
Yeah, so if you're doing it within the time frame, so for example, just going back to the inspection, if you find a major issue with the inspection, and then you feel that you don't want to purchase this house because it's going to be too expensive to fix, and the seller's not willing to put in any money. Even in a lot of cases too, I mean, here in Cincinnati with the basements, we find foundation issues, and that just scares a lot of people, which understandably, reasonably so. So as long as within that inspection period, you send that cancellation in, say the foundation is bad, I'm canceling. You can, in our case, it's, do you call it earnest money in California?
Right, yes.
Yeah, so you can, seller still has to agree. They have to sign off on the document saying, yeah, you can get your earnest money. As long as within the time frames, they should be doing it.
Okay.
Outside of those time frames, I've seen a situation where I had a investor selling a property. He lived in it on his own. He just rented the upstairs to his buddy, but somebody was buying it. And then the buyer at the last minute, the mortgage company said, hey, guess what? We can't give you the mortgage. So that was wasn't really the buyer's fault. It was more the lender's fault. He did wrong. Obviously, you shouldn't get to the closing date, and now you're telling us he can't close.
Okay.
But obviously the seller was upset, and I explained the situation to him. He said, I'm not signing the release. So he wasn't willing to release the money to the buyer. In Ohio here, we have a law though, that if, the title company holds on to it for 2 years, if there's no court settlement or no signed agreement between the buyer and seller, then eventually it goes back to the buyer.
After 2 years, what if you want it before 2 years because you want to buy another house? Then what happens? Can they do? Because legally, isn't the seller legally liable to give him back? Isn't buying a house subject to you getting a loan though?
Yes.
Right. So if he gets a loan, then you get the money back, right?
I mean, he should give the money back. I mean, that's if it were me, I would, it sucks. I was, it was the last, basically you're supposed to close today, and then you find out, hey, you can't close, so that I understand the seller's point of view.
Right, yeah.
Ultimately, we sold later on, but still he was unhappy with the original buyer, even though it wasn't the buyer's fault, it's the lender's fault. So should the seller sign it? If it were my, you want some kind advice, I would say, yes, go ahead, sign it. Yeah. Let's just move on.
Right.
But it's up to you. If you don't want to sign it, then, then the buyer has to go and sue the seller, which, depending on the size of the earnest money, if it's a small amount, the lawsuit's going to cost more than what you're going to get back.
Okay.
In that situation, you might just want to wait the 2 years. You could threaten the lawsuit, but it's not an easy situation though.
Right. Okay. Well, we've talked about a lot. We're up at an hour, so I think we'll cut it off right here. Any last comment you want to make, Paul? I know you have some great information. If you're watching the recording, and if you have any questions, shoot an email to me or Paul. We'll be glad to answer or refer you. On that note, next week we have a very interesting topic, a very important topic that's affecting a lot of buyers and sellers, and that is the insurance crisis and the property tax crisis. I'm going to have that. I haven't confirmed a guest yet, but I'll have an expert guest who knows about this. So this is our topic. Please join us again at 4:30 Mondays, California time. And with that note, Paul, I really want to thank you for giving us so much information, sharing with the buyers and sellers. And I want to thank the audience who have watched or are watching our recording. Thank you for watching. Please make comments, share your feedback, share your concerns, ask us for referrals. We'll give you a great referral. Thanks for watching. And thanks, Paul. We'll talk
Thank
to you
you again.
All right, thanks.
Great being on.
Yep. Let me end this. Okay.